So I think we have a great responsibility to analyse it and to talk about it and to try and find very practical solutions. Easier said than done.
I mean, it's. I did just add one thing. I mean, what Paul said. Of course, I absolutely agree with, and it's a very pertinent question because I don't know about you, but you do feel the sand shifting under your feet. You know, is there going to be a planet around in another 100 years to pass on to the grandchildren and their grandchildren? And it is very, very difficult, but it's again the big question that comes up in constant conversation that we have and have with others is just how you get a coherent left. To find, I mean, you know, we can write a program between us, I'm sure. You know. Not difficult. You know, it was bread, land, peace some years ago, but I mean, we can, you know, find three. You know, no imperialist wars, end privatization, protect the environment. Easy. But how do we get a coherent organisation to pull that together? Because there's massive support for that, and yet we're dismembered, scattered, disorganised. You know, I mean that's our problem is getting a coherent left.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to end on that note. We only have less than 5 minutes left, so I want to take the last few comments together. And if you could please make them short, and then we'll do the wrap-up. So I see a hand up there.
Just very quickly.
1 second, I just want to point out the other people. The hand up there, and there's one in the middle, the gentleman, yep, and one down here, and those will be the three wrap-ups. Please go ahead.
Very quickly, just on that sort of note, in the current municipal election in Toronto, there's a kind of an interesting anger that's happening. It seems to be by people who have been impacted severely by the sort of the pension issues and the sort of financial meltdown. But that anger is being diverted to a considerable extent. I think it's happening in many settings toward people who, to some extent, are more protected in the public sector, in this case, in Toronto, but elsewhere as well. And it seems to be this kind of inter-class warfare, this inability to kind of recognize the bigger picture of what's happening. Anyway, and that seems to me that, you know, with regard to film, that could be a very interesting kind of set of questions as well. That just seems to go on and on.
A short comment and a very short question too. The comment is regarding your response about the banning of your film in the early 80s. I just wanted to add that there has been strong action material that came out during that particular time, especially a book by one German Jewish woman in the Palestinian Krajnc and the Palestinian writer Ahmed Saadi, exactly on the same issue of collaboration between Zionist leaders as well as German Nazis, actually. My question to you, Ken, is the question of balance. Don't you think it's more pertinent and historically specific to the Middle East than any other place with, you know, with wars or with conflicts? I find the question of balancing almost always comes out in the media when it comes to Israel and Palestine. You have to balance your answers, as if you can balance the oppressor with the oppressed and the occupier with the occupied. So my question is very, very short. Don't you agree that it's, you know, quite specifically used in this particular area?
And there's one last comment.
Oh, I'd like to hear that answer. Oh, okay. Mr. Loach, I've been a fan of yours since Kess in, I think it was 1967. Was that?
68.
68. Just a tremendous filmmaker, and I appreciate your work. Just a point of clarity, I think you need subtitles for Route 66 in the U.S. I hope you do that, because we missed half the dialogue yesterday. The Scottish language needs subtitles.
Liverpool,
yeah.
Liverpool, okay. This afternoon at the Michael Moore interview, a gentleman got up and mentioned the film Miral. Just for your information, since you acted like you didn't know what the film was, you probably don't know. It's a Julian Schnabel film. He's a Jewish filmmaker. And it's not a documentary. It's about, it's based on a book by a Palestinian woman about her life growing up in Palestine. And it's a very positive film about Palestinians. And I know you're very pro-Palestinian struggle. And last year at the festival, you were one of the first ones to sign on to boycott, a culture boycott of Israel. And I was just wondering, with your support of this struggle, do you intend to possibly make a movie about this subject matter?
Just before the wrap-up answers to these questions, I want to say that many of the drafters of the Toronto Declaration are actually in the room, and other people who were involved in the writing and the making of the wrap-up.
The question of balance, it's, I mean, I can't evaluate, one struggle against another, it's very difficult. But absolutely you're right that the imbalance in the presentation of the Palestinian position is ongoing, overwhelming, and every day it's just there the whole time. And it's something we have to fight, but it's very difficult to fight. There's not a reason not to fight it, but it just has to be challenged all the time. The question of doing a film in the occupied territories, I don't know, it's just very difficult. For the reasons Paul said, I mean, Root Irish is, it's Root Irish, not Route 66, by the way, so even the subtitles need subtitles. And it's Liverpool, not Scottish, so we're really in trouble. In fairness, we do have the same problem on our side of the Atlantic when we get films from this side. But anyway, the problem is not that it's a massive subject that needs films made about it. Of course it is. It's just a question of whether one can do it, because if you don't speak the language, if you don't know the culture, if you go as a tourist, you just get things wrong. And the most important audience for anything is the place where you make the film. They have to say, yes, that's okay. So, when we went to Nicaragua, took it to Nicaragua, they were the most important audience. Did a film we did a film in LA with the journalists there. They were the most important audience. You have to pass that test. If you can't pass the test, you just devalue the whole film. So it's something that we're always talking about, but I can't at the minute see the way through. But I mean, finally, just if this is our last word, I do want to say, well, just from our point of view, that the Palestinians are the most. Oh, two things I want to say. Linked to the Palestinians, there are another group of people that some of you may have heard about, but get even less attention than the Palestinians, and they're the Western Saharans. And they were dispossessed by Morocco in this case. They live in tents, they're deprived of their homeland, and no one knows of them. So when you're discussing the Palestinians, do remember the Sahrawi, because they are even more hidden, and they have an equal tragedy. You can't measure these things, but they also have a tragedy in having their land and their homes taken away from them and living in refugee tents. So remember the Sahrawi, but also quite clearly, I mean, we're here because, like I'm sure everyone here, that one day the Palestinians have to have their land back. Yeah.
Just to say thanks to everyone for coming along. Thank you for supporting our films. Thanks for this great debate. It's really wonderful to have this debate, and thank you for everybody, for all the organisation, and for the lovely invite.
Thank you for your film.